page 4 of the bond.
Yes, again, I brought this up for discussion to have on here because this was brought up back when I was in the planning commission, and then it comes to board of supervisors, and it's created a great deal of dissension and animosity between staff and the board and the planning commission. And we thought we had it all resolved, that there's gonna be no vehicles for the bullseye recycling. No automobiles, no vehicle recycling, etc. And then the other day, I don't know, it was about a month ago or so, I going home and listened to the radio, and there's an advertising ad from Bullseye, to bring in your automobiles, for vehicles for recycling. Well, I mean, it was very clearly spelled out, and this is not within the special use permit. It was very well spelled out. They admitted that they were doing cars last time. They knew that they'd overstepped their bounds. They knew they weren't supposed to be doing it. They were doing it anyway. The board, when it come before the board, the planning commission voted unanimously to revoke their use permit. They appealed it to the board of supervisors. The board of supervisors overruled the planning commission so that they could keep going with the recycling business. It was clearly stated out to be no vehicles. And then the advertising on the radio that to bring in your vehicles. Well, that's just wrong. I mean, I do not accept people not abiding by the rules. I mean, everybody should abide by the rules. And if we're not going to abide by the rules, then we shouldn't be in business. And so with that, I brought this up so we can have some discussion about it to the agenda to revoke their use permit because they're not abiding by the terms and conditions of their special use permit.
Sure, I might defer to Maury on this. He has further comment, but if it's the board's direction to look into this, I think it might be most appropriate to refer the issue back to the planning commission for consistency with the use permit before taking it up by the full board.
Lori?
That's exactly right. I mean, if the board wishes to examine this again, the body that would review revocation would be the planning commission, and the board would be the appeal body to that body. So if it's direction, I'll certainly have it on the next agenda for the planning commission, but that would be the appropriate format for processing the revocation.
Well, that would be my request.
Yeah, I don't feel that I have enough background on this to make any kind of decision. I don't really know what's happened in the past on this, and I certainly don't want to make a decision that's going to harm a business unless I know everything about what's going on. So I can't make a decision on this.
I think that puts the board in somewhat of an awkward position because the classic process is that the planning commission would dig into the issue and come up with their idea, and then this body would act as an appeals body to that. So predetermining what your position may be might not be the best action. Maybe a process issue, but.
Okay, what do you, Mr. Spencer, do you have a comment?
No, I have a question. I guess I feel like Tom, what was the issue with the planning department with the vehicles? Was it significant? I mean, I'm like Tom, I don't know why you object to them selling or taking cars in.
Well, I object, because it's not, when you have a special use permit to run a business, there are certain terms and conditions that are outlined. When it initially come in the first time, way back when, in 2008 or something like that, I was on the planning commission at the time. They had some vehicles, to get the permit for the recycling business. They had vehicles there at the time. Well, in order to clean that up, it was to go ahead and clean up the vehicles that they had there, but then after those were cleaned up, to have no more vehicles. Well, they continued to do vehicles. And then it come before the planning commission, they were doing vehicles they weren't supposed to. They admitted that they were doing vehicles, they knew that they weren't supposed to be doing vehicles. The planning commission voted unanimously to to revoke their special use permit. They appealed it, comes to the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Supervisors overruled the, upheld the appeal, and overruled the planning commission and continued, reestablished their use permit so they could keep going as a recycling business, but specifically said in there, no automobiles.
Your turn. Come up here and state your name for the recorder.
Tom Glenn. In true Lassen County fashion, it's, feels like I'm standing up here like Wild Bill or Peter Lassen, ready to be backshot again. I'm attacking my 80-year-old mother again. Attacking my son's business, you, personally. If you're smart enough to read the findings at the last hearing where it was 5-0, you'll find that there was just not supposed to be any car crushing. So we're the only ones in Lassen County who can't buy a car, a junk car. Go listen to Swap Shop this morning. And the same ad has been running since 2011. And if you're that stupid to not figure that one out, you can do anything you want here. Who's policing this guy? We're on YouTube, him bad-mouthing me, bad-mouthing my family. My son's not here because he's got a lawyer, he's going to take care of you. And whoever else wants to follow along. So your goon sitting back there, stay away from my family, trying to take us down, because you're not going to do it. And does anybody know that his wife works at Aiden thing, and you're putting it on the ballot to tax people in the North County to recreate his wife's job, Aiden Ambulance? Conflicts of interest, who's policing these guys?
The voters.
The voters, there's nobody here, there's no Brown Act, there's no nothing. This guy's out of control. Badmouth Pizzuo, badmouth me, badmouth my family. It will stop.
Are you crushing cars now?
No, we've not. There is no money in crushing cars. We haven't crushed a car since, and that was our agreement. Mr. Chapman, everybody said right there, we can't be banned from buying a car. Want me, so I can't go to the Forest Service auction this week and buy a car? Or I can't buy the whole sheriff's fleet like we did last time? That's against the rule for just us. Seems like we're the only one with a revocation notice other than poor old Jinx out there at Litchfield. That's the only two businesses you're going to pick on in Lassen County. You drive by 40 illegal things to get to us, don't you? Don't you? It's a personal thing. You went against us with the planning, even though you were just elected, not taken office yet. You got up and wanted us taken down. You wanted a local business. You've been on the attack up in your district. Your little goon squad up there has been taking them out, attacking everybody, environmentally, everything. You need to go. I would resign. Thank you.
Anybody else? Iona? And Larry?
Iona McCain here. I can recall years back that the county was really having some difficult time take care of these automobiles that are left out in the field. And I know that we had something like 3 pickups and 2 trailers. And I called the guy on Big Sky Boulevard, I don't know what his name is, to come out. He said, yeah, I'll charge you so much to travel time and $50 for each item. All right? Then, I was trying to figure out, there's some money here for these vehicles and all that sort of thing. And then I called this guy here. He says, we'll be glad to come out there and haul that stuff free of charge. And remember, the county had a big problem with that.
Yeah, because at one time there was a cost to do it. Now there's some price.
They can make a profit on it. I don't understand why we'll forget about the fact that it's already been settled that he's not supposed to smash cars or whatever it is, to dismantle them or whatever, and he was voted out of that particular permit because he wasn't permitted properly. But if he's going to go out and buy something and then want to resell it, I can see no problem with that. There's no permitting process to say you can't buy a car and resell it, other than pay taxes on it. you know? He's permitted to do whatever recycling he can, but the automobile situation, I think, is a little out of hand. He's not crushing cars and doing that anymore. And I think he's doing a real good service for this community, especially what we've had went through before. Thank you.
Nobody else wishing to speak, bring it back to the board, what do you guys want to do? Discussion and possible direction to staff. I have no comments on it.
It seems to me as if they're operating in the parameters of their permit. I don't know what their permit says, I have no clue. And I'm being asked to make this decision and I don't know what's going on with them. I'm
I
gonna,
think it would only be fair to not put Tom in a bad spot on this, if we table it until we get,
I would like some,
until we get some other board members that have past perspective to.
Aaron, since you put it on, I will leave it up to you. If we take no action, then is that what I'm hearing?
yes.
Right, can we re-agendize this for a later date when we have some?
You have a specific date next week?
I'm hesitant to mess with this.
If Larry and Jim will be back, I mean, I don't know what their schedule is.
Okay. We'll just put it on the next meeting when it looks like everybody's gonna be.
Can I ask Maury a question? Okay, for these guys to get a permit to actually crush cars legally and to sell the crushed cars as scrap, what's the issue with that? Why are we in their way to?
There's a large record to review if you care to do so, but it really comes down to a zoning district and what's allowed by right and by use permit. Their use permit specifically says no cars. It's not a matter of crushing, squeezing, whatever. It's no cars. And the last thing the board said was no cars, and Bullseye said no cars. And so
Okay.
that's in a nutshell.
I understand that.
But there are zoning districts that allow it, but there's no zoning districts that would allow all the crushing and squeezing, blah, 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 without a use permit.
So they were taking the fluids out correctly and all that when all this thing blew up. This is really the first I've heard anything really about this stuff. And I'm
Right, so
reluctant
just,
to be
again,
in
it
business
just comes
with
down to zoning, and that's not a use that's allowed. The special use permit that they got doesn't contemplate cars. And when there was this revocation and appeal, the last thing that the board said was no cars, no cars. And so, I mean, if I'm speaking for Supervisor Albaugh, but that's the gist of it, and so that's why he's bringing it up.
Sir, you have a comment you want to make? Come up to the podium and take a name. No, you're right, come on.
In the minutes, it clearly stated,
Sir, hey, sir.
Tom Lunigan,
Okay, you gotta do it for the recording.
All right.
Recording.
Tom Lunigan. At the meeting, on the approval, clearly stated, Mr. Chapman, Mr. Dally, you could take cars as long as you didn't crush them. We could load them whole on top of our load, that's what we've been doing. My son spent $75,000 up the street for a piece of M1. Talked to these guys one time, you were gonna have 40 conditions on it to put a crushing operation up the block. So, you're not gonna deal with these people. There's just no dealing with them, especially if your name is Glenn. So, he's permitted to buy a car. You can't restrict anybody from buying a car. Nobody, not legally. You tell anybody else, you got an illegal crushing operation out there right now, no containment. We're the only one with a stormwater permit, and you can check with Craig Hemphill on this. We're the only one that's complied in the whole county, other than landfill. You got one out there where oil's probably running in, probably polluting the whole Susan River and everything. You guys drive right by that one, and I don't even think there's a use permit there to crush a car, is there? But we have permission to load cars whole on top of the load. Buy a car, throw it on the load. And that's what he's been doing, 2 or 3 at a time. There's no money in cars. We don't even want to really buy it. The attrition's down to 30 a month if you're lucky, right now. The old attrition was 60 of them a month, guaranteed, car a day, every day. But that's what was agreed on at the last meeting when the 5-0 vote, and that's what should be left alone. I mean, if you want to permit him up the street, he'd be happy to do it, but he's not going to deal with people that are extortion artists as far as 40 conditions and nobody else has to comply with that. Nobody's complied with a storm permit, nobody's complied with anything. So why should we be different? You know it, I know it, your personal little vendetta, his personal little vendetta.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Iona?
Iona McCain. I want to ask a question, and the question is, can a condition or regulation be so general that you can't possibly follow it? Now, the reason I ask that is because Maury comes up and states, I'm sorry, Maury states, you know, no cars. But really, what I hear is the permit has to do with dismantling and crushing cars. I think there's a difference in what is being stated here between the two. No cars versus crushing and dismantling. And does that permit just some crushing, dismantling? Is that what that's about? Or are you just saying he can't have any cars, period? Just a question, just asking, and to be considering this.
To answer, I don't know if Maury wants to attempt to, or.
And so, if I may, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let's refocus for just a second. Of course, the item on the agenda, of course, is discussion of possible direction to staff related to one supervisor's request that there be a possible revocation of use permit. Of course, Mr. Anderson indicates that that would have to occur first at the Planning Commission, and that this entity would only be an appeal if one were launched to any decision made by the Planning Commission. And so really the question is whether or not the majority of this board is directing Mr. Anderson to make that application to the Planning Commission or not. I'm cautious about this board receiving information, taking testimony, if you will, on something that it might later receive an appeal on. And so, but that's the proper process as I understand it. And if there's no decision today, if it's tabled today, it could be taken up at a later time. When all five are here, it's the discretion of the board, but I wanted to refocus on the issue at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you for that clarification.
Helped a lot. Okay.
And I would like to state.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right, Council. The thing that I know about permitting processes, as if I didn't know anything about that, lived it for 30 years. When people want to take away your permit, like it was happening to us back in 92, 93, even when it was decided that it was not correct, it still went through the legal process. The stress that I went through with Everett is unbearable. And I'm saying, just that whole issue that you just brought up, of getting a permit, of revocation, is stressful and it's costly. And I just don't think on something like this, that in the permitting situation, when the definition within whatever was signed for the permit, we're talking about two different things. Whether he can have a car there or sell a car, different from dismantling and crushing a car. There's, to me, a big difference between the two processes. But going through the process of permitting and taking it away, a permit, is a very stressful thing. I met Rick Simon about 3 weeks ago over in Shasta County. All right? I have no animosity toward that young man, that he signed the petition, the motion to bring a lawsuit against the McCains. A young man did that out of the planning department. The board up here, no one signed it. The county council, Bill Moreno and Bill Bixby, none of them signed it. It was Rick Simon, just a beginning planner. I just feel that to take a permit away is a big process and a stressful one and a costly one. And I don't think it's something that should be done in reference to this case, because there's a difference between no cars and a difference between crushing and dismantling cars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you guys want to do? I have no interest in passing this to the planning commission. If that's the pleasure of the board, then
Well, I asked for it to be tabled until a future date when we have the full board here to
Okay, then this item will be tabled to a future date.
For the record, I have no interest in passing this through the plan commission either.
Okay, we're gonna move on to,
So, I think what we'll do is, I see item H2 pertains to the bullseye, and I see the things in there, I'd like to take that up, and that way you guys could, get on with the rest of your day
Okay.
and get back to work.
Morning, gentlemen. My name is Tom Glenn, or Old Tom Glenn. Basically, I'm gonna do a little timeline here, and it goes back to 2 years ago today.
But sorry, I should have gave a bit, can you give a bit of what this is about?
Yeah, Supervisor Albaugh had requested the item on the agenda to discuss the use permit as it applies to the current operations at Bullseye Recycling and its consistency with the existing use permit. Supervisor Albaugh.
I think, yeah, before we, sorry, I jumped the gun. Before we begin, I should give Supervisor Albaugh the opportunity to discuss or bring up any issues that, thanks, sorry about that.
The reason I brought this up was, as I stated last week, because I was on the planning commission for a long time. This issue come up with the vehicles while I was on the planning commission, and then a transitional board. And throughout this whole process, the Bullseye Recycling was recycling cars. They were in the process of squishing, and selling cars, cleaning up the community, which nobody had a problem with. But the problem was, is they used to did not allow the recycling, dismantling, wrecking the cars, etc. This whole thing come to a head, and it was in September 18th of 2012. They appealed the decision by the planning commission to revoke their use permit to the board of supervisors. At that time, the board of supervisors overruled the planning commission and so that they could continue with their recycling program. Within that, I recalled that there was to be no vehicles, and I went back and I looked at the minutes, listened to the tapes, and I was under the understanding that there was going to be no more vehicles. I mean, Mr. Glenn III said he was done with the autos at the September meeting. That if he had cars, he'd just put them on car carriers, but he was going to quit taking cars. Mr. Hanson, he was willing to put the car thing behind him at this particular location. Wassick, he said that they were finished with the auto stuff. The motion was made by December 31st of 2012 that all their autos would be removed. Moving forward into January, the authorization to operate was amended to contain no vehicles. And so I was assuming that there was to be no vehicles involved whatsoever. But then, in doing more research, and I was informed by the county that no matter what they're in, and what the Glenn said that they were doing, that they still have the right to buy and sell cars by right within the county. Help me out this morning here.
Yeah.
You can help me out if I'm wrong. But they can still have the right to buy and sell cars as long as they are doing nothing to them. They're not draining oil, they're not squishing, they're not smooshing, etc. They have the right to do that. And so with that, I mean, by right, they have the right to do that. I was going by what was said in here, where there was no vehicles. And so apparently there was a miscommunication by my assumption and my interpretation of it. And so with that, I will stand to correct it. And if there is something we need to maybe re-agendize this with, to get the Glenn and the county involved to get that clarified or rectified for everybody, that might be more appropriate than to go forward with the revoking of the use permit. So I will defer that to you guys, if you guys would like to get that clarified, or Maury to get that clarified, or Richard, however we want to get that clarified, so that we can put this to rest and move on.
Before we begin.
I still have a couple of comments.
Yeah, we just need to start off. Sorry about this. Okay, before we go to the public, is there any comments from board members? Okay. Yeah.
And let me skip ahead with my timeline. But as you said, my son said, I won't crush another car, but I will top load him on a high side. That's what he's done for the last 2 years. And come on, if you buy a car, you can't change the oil in it. We're permitted to do that. He's got every permit you need. He's the only yard in the whole county that is in compliance with the stormwater. Only one. So we will, if it's legal to do it, we'll do it. If it's illegal, we won't do it. But I want to skip ahead to the permit that was issued, which we had to fight to get. And it's dated 12/26/12, signed by Galen Norwood. And it says it reverts back conditions to operate 10/3/09, which there was no exemption of cars. Then we'll jump to your first meeting ever, January 8th. You read out the first thing on the agenda. I want their use permit reworded to not include cars. You try changing the facts after the facts. Like I say, there's a paper trail as wide as Main Street out there. We've done everything that he said he would do. He went up and bought a $75,000 piece of real estate up the street, correct zoning, M1. He sends his manager, Bob Snyder, into the undevelopment. 29, 30, 40 conditions. Brian has, at Susanville Towing, has 4 conditions for a dismantler's yard and an auto record. You want him to have 40, they have 4. They're not in compliance right now. They have no containment for down there crushing cars. Nothing's legal. They got oil probably running into the Susan River. But my son behind me is the only one that actually has a stormwater permit through law and quality control. Also, the property he's on is the only piece of property that touches the airport. It is not M1. He's at the end of the runway. The easy thing would have been to change the zoning. You're doing it proper. We did 12,000 cars. There was never a problem. The only complaints were created by a department. And you know which department, and I know which department. And then we get to the, you guys are on the car thing, but Lassen County is suspended from vehicle abatement. Lassen County Sheriff's suspended from the, auto theft DUI. Why? The state lady told me misappropriation of funds. You've been suspended since, 6/30/13, effective July 1st. This has been kept quiet for a whole year. Here you're griping about a program. We're not allowed to, the only car we can buy has got to have a junk slip on it. Then it does not constitute a vehicle, okay? Or it has to have a title and or be currently licensed or not. We turn down 60 cars a month right now. 2 a day. Because they have back fees on them or whatever. When we were allowed to crush a car, we were exempt from that. There's an exemption in there. So there's 60 cars a month stacking up that we can't accept. The only thing we do is buy a legal car that we're allowed to buy. And now we're clear around, had threats of arrest back then, me and Bob Snyder, now me and Bob Snyder being threatened with arrest again. This whole thing needs to be stopped. I mean, you can change the zoning. I think Mr. Egan has an alfalfa field that's next to the airport that's zoned M1, if I'm not mistaken. You need to really look at the zoning of Johnsonville, especially where we're at. And at the end of the airport, and he does a good job at everything. I think it was Mr. Chapman that said we need to go with this guy. He seems to know what he's doing and takes care of what he's doing. And me, I'm here to take care of my family. So that's what it's about. And you guys, I know you can make the zoning right, and I know you can make the conditions right. He has the ability. He has a $200,000 building to do everything right. Everything's under roof like it's supposed to be. He's bent over backwards. But we're not getting any respect from supervisors, anybody else. for what we've done. You know, like I say, 12,000 cars under his belt, never a mishap. I thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Do I got a question?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, you know, I mean, I certainly respect you guys' efforts that you've done there for the community. I know when you guys were crushing the cars, I don't want to debate, you know, whether it was from there, you know, we've already talked that talk, but it was definitely a service the community needed. And it was well documented that, you know, the sheriff's department, the county, or, you know, were bringing you cars to crush, and it was a service well needed. So separate to this, so I think I'd like to have an item, an agenda in July where we could come, because there is a need to have a car crushing facility, you know, in the county to clean up the mess. And I like to put that on the agenda for July, where we have a discussion about how we could best achieve that, if at all, or maybe not, maybe we can, maybe we can't. I think it's important that for Lansing County to have a facility to be able to do that. And like you said,
I have one
there's a
other-
lot of cars that were being crushed and the community being cleaned up, and now it's not happening anymore.
I think we might be able to discuss that today in our review of the overall department in a general sense.
If we could do that, I mean, it would be appropriate if we could get the Gwynn's, Brian Phillips, the Knight, Alan Doyle, have them have some input on this too, so we're doing it right.
I have one other comment. I mean,
Confusing.
my son had to pay $235,000 to the worst gun department in the state of California, Cal Recycle. If it's about money, you guys just tell us how much. I mean, if that's what it takes, it seems that's what everything seems to be about. Like I said, you need permit money, whatever you want, but we're not gonna deal with 30, 40 conditions when nobody else has them. And we were set up to do it properly, we're still set up to do it properly, and thank you again.
Okay, so as far as are we gonna have a separate, you mentioned there's something today coming up?
We've got a review of the department today, that's a big packet. We've got, I think that would be an appropriate topic for that, part of that item. Or we could agendize it on its own at a later meeting.
I think it's D5. Progress report. I think it's building service.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna touch on this issue at the 1 o'clock time certain, if you guys would
I
like.
could say one thing, it seems like if you,
Just say your name for the record.
Thomas Glenn III, if you flip back through county archives and board supervisors meetings, whatnot, over the last 10 years, say out of the top 10 issues, 3 of them come to mind, and that's the South County rehabilitation as far as furlong. You got car abatement or vehicle abatement, you got the swimming pool. And you know what all 3 of them probably have in common? None of them's ever gonna happen. Because of red tape. County, I mean, it's crazy. So I like my dad said, I've tried to bend over backward, and it's like Groundhog Day in Lansing County. Here I am 2 years from the date, at the same, basically, you know, wasting my time. I'm probably up here wasting my breath. And enough is enough. I mean, if I got to, I'll just put in, if it gets down to it, I'll just put in for another use permit. I'd like my dad said, is that what it's about? You want $2,500 for another use permit? I didn't bring my checkbook, I'll write you a check. What's really going on here? So, anyway, I guess that's all I got to say. And it's time to quit talking about whatnot. The county's vehicle abatement, you know, the county's had the money sitting there, and then it's year after year, meeting after meeting. You gave it to the undeveloped department, you gave it to the sheriff, back to the undeveloped department, and it's what? I think in 2008, Chapman said, we've been working on this thing 8 years and we still haven't gone anywhere. We're at 2014, we're having the same discussion. We were in 2012. I mean, the same with Erlong, haven't got anywhere. Still just sagebrush and empty houses and junk cars. Swimming pool. My granddaughter turned 2 years old this September. I would doubt she sees a swimming pool by the time she graduates 8th grade. Because nobody's doing nothing about it. Or wants to talk. Enough talk and get some stuff done. Bring people like, private business owners in here. Waste, like I said, waste of my time. I should be sitting in a truck or picking up junk or something somewhere, and this is what I'm doing. Like the pool, where they try to put, it's taken almost a year to put and I want a pool, I like to see a pool. Like I said, I was born here, raised here, my family's here, but what's been almost a year to even set up a JPA or whatever? Now it's a big fight over the land, so I'm off a little bit on the subject,
Let's stick to your deal.
but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that's,
Right, we hear you.
quit squabbling about stuff and let's get some stuff done. Thank you.
for your comments, yeah, thanks. Okay, anyone else? Alrighty, okay, so we'll move on. Thanks. Thank
So,
you.
did you guys want us back at 1 or somebody back?
If you'd like to, that's gonna be part of our 1 o'clock, we're gonna talk about that, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. C2 under priorities. I know we've talked a bit, we've invited the Glens back to talk a bit about the need for the car crushing facilities. I think the board really has multiple times expressed, agree that it's a service that we need.
Oh, absolutely.
So is that addressed in here?
It's not addressed in here, but I would just make a general comment that they own an industrial property that's, that would be the right place. It does require a use permit. I know they're not very happy with that idea, but unless the board wants to change policy, it's not allowed anywhere without a permit because of the many entities that are involved and the things that are addressed in the environmental.
But this document sort of is this pull together of all the projects, priorities, needs, rezoning. I think it would be important that we insert something about the need to develop a facility or something to address the need for car abatement.
Car abatement?
Or crushing or junk cars.
Well, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying we have industrial zones and we may not have enough of that. And unfortunately, the locations of a lot of the industrial were put next to the river, which doesn't make a great deal of sense. But we do have industrial lands, and that is the proper place for a use permit for car crushing or a junkyard or anything like that.
No, I'm not saying what is or what isn't proper, but I think as a county, we need to, that's something that we need,
I totally agree.
So it'd be nice to address it in here, so when somebody does come in for a use permit or what have you, they could, refer to this as say, it's been identified as a need, and I'm prepared to,
Well, are we saying that we identify
no matter who it is, and
a
maybe
need
it's
for
only
more
3 years.
industrial property?
It's just something that, like you address the need to address zoning or look at a general plan, or it's kind of a needs or a wish list, if you will. I just think it's important because there was, thousands of cars that were being cleaned up, and now there's 0. So it's kind of a need, the county needs a place, and if this is a document that outlines the needs, the wishes and intent and priorities, I think it should be included. I mean,
Well, I understand the need part, what is the answer? What is the direction?
yeah, but this doesn't really give answers, it just kind of talks about what we need, like you have, zoning, and you say, look, this is outdated, we need to look, just somewhere in here, the need.
Okay.
Yeah, not really the how-to, how to get there, just
Right.
Recognize the need for it.
Yeah, kind of tagging on with Larry and to Glenn's deal, so much of this is economic driven as far as the cars go. I mean, for years, scrap metal was worth nothing. And so there was no real big incentive or no need to get rid of a junk car or junkyard around. And all of a sudden scrap iron goes up, well then everybody's clamoring to get rid of it and go at one spot, you know, and so then it gets there, and then pretty soon, you know, okay, well, Glenn's take cars, I got a junk car, I'm gonna go take it to Glenn. Well, Glenn sits on it, but it's gonna cost you more for, say, to crush the car and get rid of it than it is, well, maybe he's gonna sit on and speculate that, you know, 6 months from now, the prices are gonna go up, so then we get this, what you wanna call it, a surplus, an inventory built up, and kind of speculate whether it's real busy or just speculating on the prices or whatever, it doesn't matter. So you kind of got the inventory, kind of what happened with Mr. Phillips,
Mhm.
you know, at one point in time. And so, I mean, those are all issues and concerns that are outside of this board that kind of need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's
Someone do it,
dynamic.
I don't know how you do it.
It's dynamic, like you say. I mean, the Glens have every right to buy and sell cars on both their parcels. And that doesn't come with conditions in terms of quantity. So if they have 300 cars on their M1 parcel and they're all for sale, or they bought them for sale, that's what the zoning says you can do. And where we get sideways is when we start having a crusher there and we're squeezing and we're wrecking and we're doing all these other things that we would define as something else. But basically having an inventory of cars is well within their rights in that zoning district. So it's just the peripheral stuff that as the market presents itself, oh, would a crusher come and crush, and is that okay, and you know, all those different things. But certainly they can sit on any amount of cars they want. There's no end or no definition to how many cars they can have.
Don't we get money through the state for car abatement from licensing or?
We, that's an interesting question. We, in the past, I think it was in 2006 or 7, the board formed an agency with the city to impose a $1 tax on vehicle registration, and that money accumulated in a fund to the point now where I think it's 120-something thousand. But as Supervisor Albaugh was mentioning, that, you know, the ebbs and flows of the scrap market made that fund, that activity really unnecessary, because people like Bullseye were happy to pay for cars rather than us go up and go and get them. So we really didn't use that money, and because of that, the state, if you don't use the money, the state suspends it for a period of a year, the collection, and that's what happened last